This is Middle East Matters with me, Hala Mohieddin, bringing you the very best of our reporting from across the region. Coming up in today's show, why Israel is so determined to cling on to the Golan Heights. We'll bring you a special report from our Middle East correspondent. We'll also bring you all you need to know about the Hajj 2016. And Cairo residents struggling to stay fit simply because of the traffic snarling the streets. But first, it's one of the oldest active fronts in the region and yet receives little of the limelight. The Golan Heights plateau in southwestern Syria was seized by Israel at the end of the Six-Day War in 1967. Well, it remains a contentious issue between the two countries to this day. But with chaos reigning across the border, Israel is determined like never before to secure the area. This report from Cyril Payen and Didier Gruel.
The city of Quneitra in southwestern Syria. There are daily fights in this ancient way station on the way to Damascus. We are on the Golan Heights on the Israeli side of the border. For several years, the Syrian civil war has overflowed regularly into Israel. Artillery fire, mortar shellings often land here. The Israeli forces are massively deployed in the area and retaliate each time. These men are part of a combat unit deployed in this sensitive zone. They are members of the Golani Brigade, an elite battalion in charge of the defense of the border.
Oh, we have to watch out and see what they do. If anything comes to us, then we take care of it. But other than that, we don't intervene with them.
Now we are arriving in southern Golan. It's a bit tense here.
Their camp is in the area known as the Three Borders, the borders of Israel, Jordan, and of course, Syria. The latter now in the hands of several armed groups opposed to the Syrian government forces.
We watch them training all the time just behind the security fence. We know who they are. We are ready for them. There, just a little north, you have a camp of the Yarmouk Martyrs Brigade. They have pledged allegiance to Daesh.
Indeed, as we can see in this propaganda footage filmed on the Syrian side, the Yarmouk martyrs are well established here. They control some parts of the border and often engage their enemy. In recent months, security experts have been more and more concerned about the quick proliferation of diverse militias here.
It's not just one small group. We now count on the Golan Heights at least 60 different groups. Some United Nations observers revealed that they had seen some jihadist training camps with fighters as young as 15. And we are now monitoring the presence of the Hezbollah, backed by Iran, in the scope of our borders.
Whatever the danger, hundreds of Israeli tourists visit the Golan Heights every day, coming to have a look at Syria. UN peacekeepers are also deployed there. They keep on monitoring the battlefield, powerless, with no mandate to intervene. The fighting is so close that the Israeli army sometimes has to rescue Syrian war wounded. They are treated according to the gravity of their injuries, mostly in field hospitals along the border. For more serious cases, they are transported to this medical facility in the north of the country.
This is my second injury. This time I could not be treated on site, and I ended up here. I've been fighting since the war began. I was wounded in Dara, my hometown, in a battle against Daesh.
Who knows whether this vast area, located a few dozen kilometers away from Damascus, could become the next battleground.
Well, we often hear reports of the horrors associated with the Syrian civil war, but little of the devastating situation facing prisoners who've long been incarcerated there, many for political reasons. Well, that changed when Amnesty International released a damning report estimating that almost 18,000 people had died in custody since the start of the conflict. Well, now, a 3D map of the infamous Saidnaya prison has been released, giving greater insight into the ordeal facing Syria's prisoners. Laurent Berstecher reports.
This is one of the world's most notorious prisons. There are almost no pictures of its exterior and none from inside.
Shedding light on the murky world of Syrian prisons. Amnesty International teamed up with an architecture firm to create a 3D model of the infamous Saidnaya detention center. The NGO relied on witness accounts by dozens of former prisoners who described the systematic use of torture and punishment in harrowing detail.
When they brought the food, it sounded like a battle. They took out 1 or 2 people from each cell and beat them. You hear the sounds, and your heart drops to the floor. You begin to shake. You can't control it.
The London-based architecture firm which developed the model says it can help build a single narrative using a variety of different sources. And while many witnesses weren't familiar with 3D mapping, recounting these traumatic events sometimes acted as a form of therapy.
They sort of get into it and they're very keen then to start exploring and talking about their experiences and adding on to this model that we had.
The initiative aims to raise awareness about political prisoners in Syria, a topic that's been largely ignored since the war began 5 years ago. Former Saidnaya inmates now hope the project can force the international community to take action.
Unfortunately, the situation in Syria's prisons is still horrific. There are thousands of people in Bashar al-Assad's jails. Civil society in other countries hasn't really talked about this until now. They talk about the political nature of this problem, but it's actually a humanitarian crisis.
The 3D model could also be used as a legal tool for international courts. It could help provide details and recreate witness accounts in human rights cases.
Well, this week sees the beginning of the annual Hajj pilgrimage. This, of course, is when millions of Muslims from across the world travel to Mecca in Saudi Arabia to complete a series of tasks over 5 days. Well, it's a pilgrimage which is central to the Muslim faith, but one which has caused friction on the international stage in recent years. Well, France 24's Adel Gestel has been to Mecca to film the Hajj, and he joins me now on set. Adel, first of all, can you just give us an overview of what the Hajj is and why it's so important?
It's the 5th pillar in Islam, and every year millions gather in Mecca, the holy city in Saudi Arabia. They have to perform some rituals performed by the Prophet Muhammad in his last pilgrimage. First, for example, turn around the Mecca building, the small building, the black building.
The black building which we associate with the Hajj,
yes.
Of course.
Second ritual, kiss the black stone in one of the corners of the Mecca building. There's another ritual, walking between 2 hills, Safa and Marwa, through 7 stones at a place called, it symbolizes the stoning of devil.
Okay.
And there's another ritual, Muslims have to gather in Mount Arafat.
Obviously, with so many people coming to Mecca, security must be a top concern.
Yes, over the years, there have been many incidents. Thousands of people have been killed.
Yes.
And there are some new measures, security measures in Saudi Arabia, like the electronic bracelet, which is connected to a GPS location system. It means providing information about every pilgrim. And yes, of course, sometimes it looks dangerous.
Okay, well, just quickly, Adel, we have had problems in recent years, particularly though between Saudi Arabia and Iran.
Yes, and the Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei suggested Muslim countries to think about Saudi's control of holy places. Of course, Iran is a Shia power in the region, and Saudi Arabia is a Sunni one, and there is a cold war today between them. Yes. So, of course, we can see that in this pilgrimage.
Indeed, Mecca at the centre.
And Iranian citizens don't go to Mecca this year.
Thank you very much, Adel Gastel.
You're welcome.
France 24's reporter talking to us about the situation in Mecca. And finally, we all know how hard it is to keep fit, especially city dwellers who lead busy lives. But in the Egyptian capital, they find it harder than most, as runners and cyclists have the additional challenge of congested streets and a lack of facilities. Well, now a group of amateur athletes are fighting back, aiming to reclaim the streets in a bid to keep fit. This report from Khaled Dessouki and Passan Refat.
On a Friday morning in Cairo, thousands of joggers gather despite the summer heat, then set off on a 4-kilometer jog which will take them along the Nile on the wealthy island of Zamalek. A challenge in the gridlocked metropolis where pedestrians have to contend with traffic.
Egypt is beautiful, but it's much nicer in the morning. After that, there's traffic, especially around 4 p.m. It's dreadful.
Sport in Egypt used to be mainly practiced in clubs reserved for the elite. But now, joggers of all backgrounds are using social media to organize group outings across the capital. The Cairo Runners Group, founded in late 2012, attracts between 2,000 and 3,000 people every week. Cyclists also increasingly swarm the crowded Cairo streets, exposing themselves to all sorts of criticism. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has called on Egyptians to exchange their cars for bikes, even leading a bike tour himself. But the dangers of cycling, particularly the absence of bike lanes, are an obstacle to many.
It's somewhat difficult and dangerous. I've already been in 2 bicycle accidents. I was hit by 2 cars and fell off a bridge. There's been many incidents, but I won't give up biking.
More than 3 million vehicles are registered in Cairo and its twin province of Giza, making life difficult for its pedestrians and cyclists. But most of them soldier on, braving the city's dusty, traffic-choked cacophony.
And that's it from me and the Middle East Matters team. It's been great having you with us. We're back again at the same time next week. Do stay with us here on France 24. The news headlines are coming right up.